Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's summer, the plants are growing, but some things are not quite right. Why did this not work? Why is my plant not doing well? These are some questions we are answering today. It's the Q&A show next on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. The garden is in the ground and it's time to catch up on viewer questions. We have answered a lot of viewer questions over the past few months, but have not had the time to air them all. Hopefully these answers will help you in your garden. Let's start with a question about some strange shaped tomato leaves. What causes the leaves on my tomatoes in my high tunnel greenhouse to curl up like this? And this is Curtis from Old Fort, Tennessee, Old Polk County.
Oh.
All right. So, good picture.
It's
Appreciate
a good
the
picture, but there's nothing
what came to your
around it.
mind?
There's nothing around it.
Okay.
At first I thought maybe nutrients, but then I saw it was curling.
Ooh.
And then because there's nothing else around, makes me think maybe he sprayed some herbicide to get rid of weeds or something else there. And in the high tunnel, it may have captured and volatilized, and it sounds like it looks kind of like herbicide damage.
So to me, it looks like herbicide damage, right? You have the curling of the leaves, right?
That's the key, the curling.
Distorted leaves, right? The real thick petioles, the thick stem. Yeah, that sounds like a herbicide to me.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the thing now, I'm not going to be able to do too much about it. Will it grow out of it? Maybe, but you know what's going to happen? If it does grow out of it, you're not going to get the production that you're looking for.
True.
All right, so
you
that's
may
what
need
happens.
to start over again.
Yeah. And then too, you can notice, I mean, look at the coloration of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
a little lighter
it's
in
not
color.
healthy.
Yeah, not healthy at all.
Yeah.
So you can try to keep it watered and see if it'll grow out of it, but you know, outside of that, it's not going to be much you're going to be able to do with it.
And
Right.
I know you have high tunnel, but maybe it'd be better to have some kind of ground cover landscape fabric, just that you just lay on the ground to keep the weeds off instead
Yeah.
of spraying
Right.
for weeds in the high tunnel.
Right, because again, if you're going to be spraying any pesticide in the high tunnel, remember
It's just going to stay in
Yeah,
there, and
yeah.
with the fluctuation in the spring from heat and cold,
Yeah.
I can see things volatilizing.
yeah.
And he may have sprayed it at the right temperature, and then it volatilized before it dissipated in the ground.
Classic symptoms though: strapped leaves, cupping, curling leaves, thick petiole and stem. Yeah, herbicide. Why are my daffodils not blooming? And this is Tim from Markeson, Wisconsin. He said he lets the leaves die back naturally every year, Celeste. So he's actually doing the right thing there,
Yes.
right? So why are they not blooming?
Well, that's a tough question.
It's a tough
So I'm gonna kind of lay out all the options,
lay it out.
and
Let's lay it
then
out.
see if he can kind of pick through these to
Okay.
see if any of these fit his situation.
All right, let's do it.
So number one, we could be in too low light of a situation. Okay. So sometimes we'll plant plants and they had plenty of light when we initially planted them, but
Okay.
as things mature and grow, right, then
Right.
shade conditions, sun shade conditions can change. So maybe they're getting more shade than they used to, and so maybe that is an issue with why they're not blooming. Okay.
Okay, I can follow that.
The second thing that came to mind is depth. Maybe they are too deep. Now, sometimes I see more often that bulbs are pushed up and they become too shallow over time from the freeze and thaw of the ground, and they can slowly push bulbs up to the top.
That's good.
But then at the same time, maybe consider, has there been any construction? Has there been any land movement, any disturbance? Have you created a new bed? Have you added mulch on top of them for 2, 3, 4 years in a row, and now they are 6 to 8 inches deeper than they were before?
Okay.
So depth could be an issue, maybe too deep, maybe too shallow. So let's check on those.
Okay. I like that.
Ideally for daffodils, because daffodils have different size bulbs depending on what type you have. You want them to be planted 2 to 3 times their height deep, okay? So use that kind of as the gauge. The other thing that I was going to throw out there is I'm not sure if they have been there a long time or are they newly planted. Newly planted bulbs can take a few years to really kind of start initiating a really good bloom display. Or if you dug them up from another location, split them up and planted them in a new spot, sometimes that can push them back a few years.
Okay.
So those would be my go-tos.
Okay. Can I add another one?
Yes.
Could they be crowded?
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be overcrowded. Maybe they need to be thinned.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, so maybe you need to dig them out and yeah, divide them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, put them back in the ground.
And let them kind of rejuvenate. But again, when you divide them up, then expect a year, you
Yeah.
know, a couple
Yeah,
years
that's a good
of
point.
play there before they're nice and thick again.
Last year, my hostas had yellowing around the leaf edges and tips. I am seeing the same thing again this year. Why is this happening and how can I prevent it? And this is Kelly from Bartlett, Tennessee. She says the pots are located on a fully covered porch facing north. She waters them frequently and fertilizes them 3 to 4 times during the growing season. So we'll start with you on this one, Celeste.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think? Yellowing around?
I just want to
leaf
preface
edges.
this by saying before I read the full explanation of like placement and everything, initially I was like, I bet they're getting sun scorched, right?
Yep.
Hosta
Yep.
are
Sure.
shade, part shade loving plants. I bet they're getting too much sun. They're getting brown around the edge. But then I looked at the picture that they sent, and I also, continued to read her description, and she said they were on the north side.
North side.
The north side of your home, where we are, is usually going to be the one that has the most shade, right? Just because of the aspect of the sun.
Yep.
So, and it's fully covered. So I'm like,
Fully
sun
covered.
is not the issue
Not a
here,
problem.
because they're getting plenty of shade. And then I just kind of started, weeding out all the potential options. I was like, this doesn't look like hosta virus where you get strange mottling
yeah.
and streaking in the leaf.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like anthracnose,
Yeah.
which is one of the leading leaf issues with hosta. They get these weird kind of wavy brown, dead areas along the edges of the leaf. The picture didn't look like that. And so I want her to just check her drainage holes in her containers. Make sure that they have drainage holes, number one. Number two, make sure that the hole isn't clogged by something. In really large containers, sometimes people will fill the bottom with another material just, so they don't have to use so much potting soil. So that might be completely clogged up and the water doesn't have any way to get out. And then the third thing that I would suggest is sometimes depending on how the pot is made, it lays flush on the concrete. And so just the concrete itself prevents the water from draining out. So maybe put some of those little pot feet underneath the container. They make these little feet. You can
Yeah.
just kind of wedge up underneath there
talking about.
to
Okay.
create an inch or so of width there in between the pot and whatever it's sitting on. And I think that things might clear up.
Did that might clear up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Peter?
No, I saw it and I was like, this kind of looks like overwatering to me. So the other thing is, it all depends on how big of a pot it's in.
Yeah.
But you can take your finger, just stick it in the soil, up to a couple knuckles in, and just see is it dry or is it wet down there, an inch and a half below the soil surface.
Yeah.
And if it's wet, maybe you should hold off on watering it.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't cover if if it's sitting in, if your pot's 18 inches tall and the bottom 6 inches is just water, that doesn't apply. But that or investigate the drainage holes on the bottom of those pots and see if it really is draining.
Yeah, because that definitely could be it because she saw the problem last year. Yeah, seeing it again this year. So I look for patterns.
Yes.
So, could it possibly be, too much water? And I think that could be the issue because she is watering them frequently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is better than not frequently
that's
enough,
right.
I guess. In
That's
some
true.
cases, she may
true.
not have a plant anymore. She watered not frequently
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
So just kind of adjust that watering schedule. Check your drainage.
Yeah.
See if that improves things.
What are these metallic-looking beetles on my yellow rose? And is there a way to take care of them without using harsh chemicals? And this is Twinkle and Mark from Wimberley, Texas. Right, so we do appreciate the picture. This is something you and I took a closer look at. Dark flower scarab, or sometimes called the spangle flower beetle.
Okay. Because I was going to say it was looked like some type of beetle to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite make it out.
Yeah.
But I know the second part of that question says, how can I take care of them without using the chemical?
Right.
Only thing I can think of is some type of bait, maybe.
Maybe.
You know.
Yeah, bait or spinosad,
Okay.
for, those insect pests that have chewy mouth parts.
Right.
Or how about this? You just hand pick them off.
Hand pick them off.
Hand
yes.
pick them off, or you get your bucket of warm soapy water, you just knock them in it.
Okay.
Right? That way you don't have to
yes.
worry about, using any of the chemicals. And here's the thing about, the dark flower scarab is this. The life cycle, 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So the larva actually feeds on decaying organic material. So what did it tell you? Practice good sanitation.
Yeah, good
It also
sanitation.
feeds on manure. Right.
Okay.
So practice good sanitation.
Yes.
Right. Because it can actually go from larva, to an adult in about 15 days.
Yes.
Right. But the life cycle is just a year.
Just a
right.
year.
So it's going to feed on nectar, pollen, and it could, chew on some of those leaves.
Okay.
Right. But unless they're in large numbers, like Japanese beetles or something like that,
Right,
then
right.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yes, and you could kind of rule out Japanese beetles on that picture.
Yeah.
Because usually when you have one Japanese beetle, you have like 1,000.
Yeah,
So
it's
so,
several.
Yes.
Right. But again, the scarab, year life cycle. Hand pick them off. Knock them into a bucket of warm soapy water. There you have it. Can cucumbers be pollinated without a bee? And this is Carol from Catskill, New York. She says she's growing them in her apartment window. So what do you think about that, Celeste?
Yeah, so definitely she can grow these indoors and get some fruit if she hand pollinates them, okay? So cucumbers are in that cucurbit family right along with squash and watermelons, cantaloupes, all those things. And so all those plants in that family are what we call monoecious.
Yeah.
They have male flowers and female flowers on the same plant. Okay, and so first of all, we have to be able to identify which flowers are male and which flowers are female, because we need to, with a Q-tip by hand, take the pollen from the male flower
Right.
and move it to the female parts of the female flower. And the way that we can identify this is that the female flowers have a bulge at the base. And that is what will actually develop into the fruit itself. Okay, male flowers never turn into a fruit. Their only reason for existence is to produce pollen to pollinate those female flowers. So a lot of times, right at the beginning of flowering, all those flowers are going to be male flowers, and that is a technique of nature to draw in the pollinators. They want to make sure pollinators are present in the environment before they put energy into making female flowers. So
Makes sense.
I don't want her to freak out if like the first week and a half or 2 weeks it only makes male flowers, and she's like, I never see any female flowers. They'll come, and then you have to find that window where you've got two present, right? And move with a Q-tip, move that pollen from the male flower into the female flower, and you've done the deed. It has been pollinated.
It has been
And now we
pollinated.
just have to wait. And so if she wants to be diligent and hand pollinate all of those female flowers, she can certainly produce fruit indoors.
Yep.
You could definitely do that. I'm also wondering, as you're talking about that, can't you just take the male and the female flower and just kind of rub them together? You think that'll work a little bit?
Well, but
could you do that? Or could you take off a
could.
male flower, just pop one off and then go to the female flower?
I guess
maybe
you
shake it around a
could.
little
You'd
bit?
have to pull off the petals,
Yeah.
right, and everything, and then really like shove it down in there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could do that.
Be possible. Yeah. There also, are self-pollinating varieties, and I happen to know that because I know, a grower that actually grows some self-pollinating
Yes.
varieties, right? Parthenocarpic.
That's what I
is
was gonna
that's
say.
called.
And
Parthenocarpic.
that is such a hard word to say. I'm so glad you said it.
I got it out. I spit it out quick.
and they're usually seedless, right?
Yeah, and they're seedless and they're grown in a greenhouse.
Right.
Right. So this is apartment.
Perfect
so they can work.
situation.
And the variety that he has is called Diva.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Diva. He
She's
didn't know
a
I was paying
diva.
attention. So yeah, Diva.
She's a diva.
How about
She
that?
can take care of herself.
Yeah. How about that? So there you go, Carol. You could do that.
And I would
do-
add just,
Sure.
I'd suggest you probably pollinate them in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Because that's when the plants are most, they're expecting the bees
Yeah,
to come
yeah.
first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pollinate them in the morning as opposed to the afternoon. You'll probably have more success that way.
When and how should I up-pot budding magnolia cuttings out of their 8-inch pots? And this is Robin from Euphoria, Mississippi.
Yay.
So Robin, Celeste is going to help us out with this one.
Yes.
So what do you think?
First of all, I want to say congratulations,
Isn't that good?
Robin. You're doing such a
That's
good
good.
job
Yeah, that's
of
good.
propagating woody plant material. Sometimes that can be challenging. So she must have taken those cuttings at the ideal time,
Mm-hmm.
gotten those rooted in well. And I'd say that they're doing great considering that when she said they are budding,
They are budding.
I'm feeling like she means budding as in flower initiation and not like budding out through leaf. So my suggestion would be if they are budding, flower budding, wait to pot those up until after flowering has done its thing, okay? Because right now, that plant is putting a lot of energy into producing that flower bud and sustaining it.
Got it.
So let it do its thing, then pot it up so the plant can focus its energy on generating new roots to fill in that larger pot that you've bumped it up into. Another option would be to clip off the flower bud and then go ahead and pot it up, right? So now we've diverted the energy. We're like, oh, there's no more flower bud there. So now you can, focus on this root development. Another thing, little side tip, I know that she didn't ask, but I wouldn't go up into too large of a container because then we could end up with like moisture issues, right? And then the potential for root rot is greater. So we definitely want to make those bump ups in increments. So nothing probably larger than like a 1 gallon pot. If she's in an 8-inch,
She's 8-inch now.
8-inch
Right.
now, maybe a 1 gallon. I wouldn't go up too high, all at one time. So those would be my suggestions for
That's good
good
suggestions.
success for bumping up.
So what do you think about potting media?
Yes, so for woody plant material, we mostly want some really well draining substrate. So I'd stay away from things that have too much peat moss in them, again, because then you could get that root rot, but you've got to pay more attention to your watering habits to make sure that they have the water that they need. So just making sure that you have, I don't know that there's any perfect, formula for that, but if you feel like it is too peat heavy, add in some like finely shredded pine bark mulch. I mean, when you buy woody shrubs at a nursery and pull them out of their pots, that media is predominantly like a shredded pine bark type of material.
Does mixing all my raised bed soil and adding compost count as crop rotation? This is John from Warwick, Rhode Island. He says every fall he breaks down his raised beds and in the spring sets them back up and refills them using the old soil mixed with compost. So, good question.
A real good question. And to answer his question, that is not crop rotation.
Okay.
Crop rotation is where you plant a different crop species from, in a spot than what you had last year.
Right, right.
So like you would plant, your sweet corn or your tomatoes where you had your peas and beans last year.
Okay.
Because you want to take advantage of, the nitrogen being in the soil because corn and, tomatoes are nitrogen lovers. And those legumes would have put nitrogen into the soil.
Okay.
So that's really more crop rotation.
Right, got
right
it.
there.
Okay. Now, what about, changing the soil out, as you're doing crop rotation? What do you think about that?
Well, the thing is, ask yourself, did you have a disease issue last year? Because if you did, we don't need that soil coming back into the raised beds.
Right.
So you want to make sure, that you, not reintroducing some pathogen or something back into the, into the garden area. But what he's practicing here, though, about how he breaks it down and refills it and all that, that's good, and add new compost, that's a great gardening practice. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So the raised bed soil and adding the compost, you know what that does? Improves soil health.
That's right.
Right, which is a good thing.
Yes.
I want you to improve that soil structure, that soil health. Yeah, and crop rotation, as you just mentioned, when I think about crop rotation, plant placement to prevent diseases and pests.
That's right.
I mean, that's what I think crop rotation is.
Yes.
All right. So there you have it, John. I mean, you're doing the right thing, mixing those soils together.
That's right.
For soil health, not crop rotation. How do you get rid of goat head stickers? And this is Alicia from San Angelo, Texas. She says they're everywhere and her schnauzer brings them into the house. So can we help her out, Celeste?
Yeah, I think that we can help her out. So these little goat head stickers are from a plant called puncture vine. But the stickers are very distinctive. So they look like a little goat's head, right, with the horns. And it makes sense that they're getting stuck on her little sweet schnauzer's hairy legs, right, every time they go outdoors. So there are some things that she can do. Our primary objective would be to lower the amount of seeds that this plant is making, adding to that weed seed bank in the soil, right? It is naturally a lower growing plant, but if we can keep that mode to prevent flowers from maturing into, the pods that form the seeds, then that would be a good strategy. Not only, for the long term, making sure we're not adding more seeds to that weed bank, but preventing development of stickers for that season. So that would be one kind of mechanical strategy. The other would be for the plants that are existing, already germinated, growing. We could look at a selective broadleaf herbicide that we could spray in that lawn area that would not affect the grass but would target those broadleaf weeds. So we've got lots of options out there, but I would suggest a multi-ingredient product that will likely contain 2,4-D and dicamba as two of the primary ingredients, and most of those mixes now have 3 and 4 active ingredients to kind of expand the range of plants that they will control, to make it a broader spectrum. So, but I think that would help her. So those would be some options for control of the plants that are there right now.
Post-emergent. Yeah, make sure you read and follow the label on that.
Yeah, I'd say some pre-emergent could be effective too, because the weed seeds, those, the what are they? The stickers are the seeds, and they'll last for 4 to 5 years in the soil. So just
if not longer.
So just winning one year is not going to keep them from coming back the next year. But pre-emergents are useful. You can use pendimethalin, trifluralin, or Gallery. Put that down before the seeds sprout in the spring, and that stops them from growing, and so that could be very effective, especially if you have a lot right now. That'll help next year to really cut down on what you see.
Right.
And after you do that, they do have a little yellow flower, so you can just look out at your yard and just kind of scout once in a while, and if you have little yellow flowers, just go pick them. And hopefully you get down, the pre-emergent will reduce the number of plants you have to the point where that's practical.
Right. And you know me, right? I'm all about cultural practices.
Yes.
Thick stand of grass.
There you go.
Dense stand of grass.
Improve the health of that grass.
You got to improve the grass, right? Because it'll crowd out, that weed for you, the puncture vine. How do I keep squirrels off my bird feeder and bird bath? This is Craig from Apollo Beach, Florida. He says they feed blue jays and other songbirds, but the squirrels climb up and eat the food, scaring them away.
12-year-old with a 20 gauge. They have the ability to discern the difference between a blue jay and a squirrel. And so they won't hurt your blue jays, but they can take the squirrels out if you're in an area where it's legal.
Right, that's legal.
And it's squirrel season, I guess I need to add.
Right.
But that can be a problem. A squirrel baffle may be about the only thing I could think of on your bird feeder. I'm not sure whether you can figure out a way to put a baffle on a bird bath or not. You might be able to arrange one over the top of it, but that might keep the birds out too. So
that's going to be tough.
The bird bath might be kind of tough. I don't know whether anybody makes a squirrel-resistant or squirrel-proof bird bath. I've never heard of that, but there are some squirrel-resistant and squirrel-proof bird feeders.
Yes, there are.
That you could look into that have, I guess, the baffles built in, or something to aggravate squirrels and make it where they can't get a toe hold or anything like that. It would work pretty good. But I'd say good luck.
It's going to be tough. Yeah, especially you're going back to a point that you made about squirrels before. If there are trees around, I mean, maybe you need to find another place, for the bird feeder and bird bath, maybe.
You can move your bird. That's right. Bird feeders. Well, even if you have a lower baffle, under a bird feeder, if it's less than 10 feet from an area that it could jump to, because they can jump 10 feet.
Yeah.
If it's less than 16 feet from a roof, because they can jump 16 feet from above to a feeder.
That's crazy.
And they can jump 5 feet high. So it needs to be over 5 feet high and at least 10 feet from something they can jump to and 16 feet from a higher something that they can jump from. But if you're closer, get a baffle to go on top and then watch the squirrel jump on top of the baffle and slide on off. You know, that's amusing and it's kind of entertaining when you see that.
Yeah, get some entertainment out of it, right?
Yeah. Well. But that's the only thing I can think of. You know, the baffles they're readily available. You can find them in a lot of different places.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. To get more information on anything we talked about, go to familyplotgarden.com. We have all these questions listed on the home page. We also have many other answers to all sorts of gardening topics. We even may have already answered your question. If not, you can ask us right from the website. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.